The vilification of EQ. When does it stop?
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RXMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your weekly question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Bodybuilding, non-bodybuilding, whatever's on your mind, this is the forum to get your questions in for Dave. We go right into the questions. The first two questions on the show from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Now, this is a topic that we did a couple of years ago, and whenever we do anabolic versus anabolic, these generally tend to do well. But why do you suggest DECA over NPP?
You know, one of the reasons I like DECA is because it makes your joints feel incredible. And if you haven't used DECA, you don't really know what I'm talking about. But all those little, you know how you have that like little shoulder catches, and you just barely get through your shoulder workout or your chest workout, and you're like, oh, thank God I got through it. And then you're sore for like 3 days. That pain goes away. You know that little knee pain when you're squatting or you're pressing, you're like, I really can't get a great workout in because it's bothering me. Gone, I remember like one of the first cycles I ever did, I was like waiting to do this. It was like, I think the second cycle, and I was waiting because my knee was bothering me. I wasn't able to like squat and like press properly. And I'm like, I don't want to waste the cycle. And it got to a point where I was just like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to start because you know what? I'm not waiting for another 6 months, for this knee to feel better. And it's 3 weeks after I started, my pain went away, and I was doing great. And so DECA is tremendous. NPP doesn't do that. I don't know why. It's the same, parent nandrolone compound, but it's just the way the DECA is bound to the decanoate ester. For some reason, it just provides a better anti-inflammatory effect. Maybe because it's long acting and it's always working. I'm not sure what the reason is. But you don't get that anti-inflammatory effect from NPP. So for me, anytime I would choose to use one or the other, I'm going to go with DECA. I don't think that NPP has any benefit over DECA. It's shorter acting. It doesn't really cause any less side effects. So I don't see any reason to use it. Now, there was a potential use for women with NPP saying, well, NPP is faster acting. You're not going to get the side effects from DECA. And that is true. You won't, as a woman, you won't get as many side effects, but you're going to still get side effects. It is pretty strong. I don't recommend that women take it. However, in cases of women not worrying too much about side effects, there are women out there that there are some side effects are acceptable to them, and they'll use it. It's a much better option than using DECA, obviously, because it is shorter acting. But for men, I don't see any benefit to using it. A lot of guys use it just because it's more available for them. But I think that a lot of these rejuvenation clinics prescribe DECA now, especially if you have any kind of orthopedic issue. If you can present evidence to them of that, then they have a justification to write you a prescription for DECA. And it is American made. So like I said, I don't see any benefit of the NPP over the regular DECA.
Second question, again, these first two from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, available, of course, on the App Store and Google Play, or wherever you get your apps. In your experience, is using EQ safe in the long term? Can you explain how to use it effectively and mitigate its side effects? Some fitness influencers are saying it's not safe to use and making videos against its use.
I don't understand this vilification of EQ that goes on in today's world. To me, EQ is probably the safest and the best anabolic to mix with testosterone that's available. You grow well from it. You get great pumps from it. It opens your appetite up. You're hungry on the stuff. You don't feel irritable on the stuff. You just have a really good feeling of well-being on it. And I know in the 90s and early 2000s, that was the go-to. And we couldn't even get the human version. We were using the that was available, which is essentially the same thing. It was just in big bottles. It would be like 30 and 50 cc bottles at 50 milligrams per ml. Today you're lucky because you get 200 milligrams per ml. It's a lot easier to take the stuff, but that was always our go-to. I never had any negative side effects from it. I don't know. I think people make up all these crazy things. There's absolutely no one ever complained when they were on EQ. Maybe guys today aren't really using real EQ, and that's why they're noticing some of these weird side effects. You got to remember, a lot of the stuff out there is got something in it, but it's not what you think is in it. And a lot of times they put test propionate into a lot of anabolics, and say that, hey, this is what it is, and people get side effects from the test propionate because it hurts when you inject it, and then they assume that it's the other drug causing the problems. I don't see any problems with EQ. I really, really think that it's gotten a bad rap from a couple of social media influencers who have done one of these deep dive, looking at these studies that don't really apply, or trying to be chemists about this and assume that this drug will do this or do that, and it just doesn't do that. It's like I said, combined with testosterone, it's the best mass builder. And combined with testosterone on a diet, it actually it's great at preserving muscle, keeping fullness and pumps. I like I said, I don't understand, and I'd love to debate people on what they think it does negatively, because it's not happening. And I can guarantee if you poll 1,000 bodybuilders who use it, I can guarantee 990 of them will tell you it's one of the best drugs they've ever used. Yes, you'll get 10 people that had a bad side effects from it, or at least they think they do. I have a lot of people who contact me on a regular basis that tell me that they take a multivitamin and they think the high amounts of certain vitamin in there is causing them to get facial flushing and hallucinations. And I'm like, no one else is getting this. They said, I read, GPT told me that this is possible. And so, if you want to find a side effect for something, you can do it. If you're the only person it's happening to, or there's only like 3 people in the world it's happening to, either you're having a weird reaction that no one else is having, or you're making it up, psychosomatically in your head. And I think that's the case with EQ. I think people and then people watch the video, and then they all of a sudden they have the side effects too. They didn't have any side effects on it. Now all of them have the same side effects they're noticing. So I'm telling you, this is probably one of the safest drugs, and it's been used for 40, 50 years, and no one's ever had problems with it. These are good questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, and these are the kind of questions we get on a weekly basis. I answer them in an open forum on the app. It's $29 per month. You download it to your iPhone or your Android phone, and you get me as your coach in your back pocket. You can ask me questions whenever you want. You'll see it in an open forum. I do a Q&A video exclusively for the app members every week. It's like an extra Ask Dave. You have all my protocols, my diets, off-season, pre-contest, my keto diet, the cyclical keto diet. All my drug cycles are on there, detoxification protocols. It's a really complete library of real information that you don't have to worry about. Is it right? Is it not right? Because it's all backed by my years and years of experience and science behind it. I think people really, really feel comfortable having that app in their back pocket. Like I said, not everyone can afford coaching. It's a way to get full contact with me and be able to ask me questions without having to hire me as a full-time coach. And so I want to just thank you guys for supporting the app all these years, and I'll keep doing it because the feedback's been great.
Before we go to the rest of our questions, our friends at Titan Medical Center have their Titan Lean Growth Stack. It's testosterone and ipamorelin blend. No matter how hard you train or how clean you eat, the midsection is often the last place people see the changes that they want. And that's one reason testosterone has become such a popular therapy amongst patients focused on body composition. So again, the Titan Lean Growth Stack featuring testosterone and ipamorelin, reduction of stubborn abdominal fat, lean muscle preservation, recovery and performance, improved body comp, healthy aging and vitality, and a stronger, more athletic physique.
When you talk about bang for your buck, Sid, I think that this is what we have to not everyone has enough money to spend a couple $1,000s a month on taking growth hormone. It's expensive. We know that, especially if you're going to get it from a pharmacy in a legitimate source. It's going to cost you a lot of money, and you just can't afford it. But growth hormone releasing peptides like morellin and tesamorelin, which Titan is selling as a combo this month, is a good way to increase natural growth hormone levels where they're going to significantly go up. We're not talking about the old days where we take arginine and hope we produce some GH. This actually directly stimulates GH from the pituitary gland, and you're going to get a nice little boost. You're going to recover better. You're going to build muscle better, and you're going to sleep better at night. And I think that, for a lot of people, the fact that it is affordable, and places like TitanMedicalCenter.com do, these sales on it and make it affordable to the different customers that come in there. It's a great way to get started. It's great also if you've never done anything and you want to get your feet dipped into the waters of peptides, growth hormone levels, for rejuvenation purposes, for recovery purposes, and for just feeling better. Nothing beats this. Check them out at TitanMedicalCenter.com. Tell them Dave Palumbo, RXMuscle sent you. You're going to get a great discount.
Let's go to the rest of our questions from our YouTube community page. How much longer? I know this has been a rolling topic now for the better part of the last 18 months. How much longer is the raw shortage and production shortage out of China expected to go on? Have other places picked up the slack that you know of, or is just everything just fake now?
I haven't heard too many people complaining to me that they can't get stuff. I know people are telling me, we heard Larry talk about it on After Hours, that there is a shortage in raw materials for certain drugs like Masteron and coming out of China. But I always look in the history of me competing using anabolics. Obviously, I don't do it anymore. But there's always been, if there's a will, there's a way. In other words, if there's a lack of something, someone finds a way to fill that void. I have clients that are all getting whatever they seem to need for their contest prep. So it must be out there. The Masteron's out there still. Maybe it's a little more expensive because it's a little harder to get, but I don't think there's a lack of it yet. Yes, maybe it's not coming in as readily as it was before, but I think a lot of people had a big supply of it here already, and they're still making it. So I haven't heard, through my sources at least, and my clients that I work with, that there is a lack, that they can't get it. A couple of them said that it took a little longer than usual, but people seem to be getting it. And the good thing is that, as you know, so we sell the Roy test kits from Bill Llewellyn on DavePalumbo.com. So you can test all the drugs to make sure that what you're using, especially if you know that there is a lack of something in the marketplace, you definitely want to test those compounds to make sure you are getting that real Masteron. It's foolish if you don't for $20, whatever the tester costs. It's real easy. And now we have semi-quantitative tests available where you can actually see how much of the compound is actually in there. So, you might have trenbolone, but you might only have half the dosage you think. Now you can actually test to see if the trenbolone is actually full dose. And that's a separate tester also on the DavePalumbo.com website under the Roy place. So test your gear. Yes, there is some shortages on certain things, but I haven't seen them disappear from the marketplace. So don't believe it. But at the same time, don't take people's word for it, because everyone's going to promise you that whatever you're getting from them is the real thing. Test it for yourself for $20. It's peace of mind. I hate to see people get to the week out from a contest and they look like crap and they look like they're natural because they're really not taking any real drugs. And that's a horrible thing to go through. You spend all that time, all that money, and then it just backfires in your face. So test what you're getting.
I've watched a few of your videos about T3 and they're informative. I just have a question regarding upping the dosage. Does how many hours apart should your dosages be? And does it matter? So I guess, I don't know, somewhat of a weird sentence structure here. I guess, how many hours apart should your dosages be? And does it matter if it's before or after a meal?
Yeah, with clenbuterol, we always split up the dosages, 20 micrograms spread out throughout the day, because clenbuterol drops your blood pressure. So we don't want to take too much at one time, because then your blood pressure drops too much, and then your heart has to beat faster. So that's why we spread that out. T3 is a little different. Thyroid hormone, you theoretically could take it all in the morning. It'll last the whole day. What I usually do with guys is once we hit like 50 micrograms per day, anything more than that, I'll just put it as a second dose at night. So they'll do first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, 50 if they're at that much, and then let's say they're at another 12.5, they might take that at night and split that dose. So the most you would ever do is split your T3 in 2 dosages, morning and night. There's no reason to take it throughout the day. That's not how the stuff works. So you're better off taking, especially when you're at 50 micrograms or less, just take the whole dose first thing in the morning, empty stomach, and that's fine. If you took it with food, it would still work. It just takes a little longer to absorb it. And that's really how it works. There's really no reason, like I said, to spread it out. The reason we spread clenbuterol out or anything that's like a stimulant, or any kind of thing that affects receptors is you want to make sure you're getting a dosage that lasts throughout the day. Plus, clenbuterol only lasts a few hours in the body, so you don't want to do that either. The T3 is meant to be a 24-hour type pill.
Question about shrooms. Do you think high-dose mushroom extract blends with lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi, and maitake are worth taking long-term? I've heard they take weeks to months to build up in your system enough to actually have an effect, and they're expensive. Is it worth the investment?
I'm always experimenting with mushroom extracts, and I like the whole concept of them. I think they're really good. And I have bought, I go to these like in downtown Fort Myers, they have like all these little farmers markets in the morning. On Saturday morning, I'll go there, and there's always people, these like with flowers in their hair and, selling these exotic mushroom extracts. And I always wind up buying something. I'll buy like a combo of the mushroom extracts with cacao in it. And I've tried a bunch of them, and I usually add it into my coffee is what I do, because mushrooms have a coffee-ish like taste to them. So you can kind of put a scoop in there and mix it into your coffee. I'll put maybe a packet to a Splendor in there too, and that's what I'll drink that in the morning. Usually I do decaf, but sometimes, if I don't sleep as much, I'll do it with regular coffee. And that's how I do mine. So lately, I was in New York City a few weeks ago, and I bought some kind of a cayenne pepper, apple cider vinegar mixture, and I noticed the company that made it online. They sold a mushroom extract product that was in like solubilized in like some kind of an alcohol almost base. And I bought it. It's like a big jar. It looks like a spaghetti sauce jar of just mushroom extract. And when you drink it, you can smell the alcohol and taste it in there, because supposedly it helps it get absorbed better. I don't know. That's what they say, at least. And I've been doing that for a while, and I get a little pick me up from it. I think what happens is, and I think it's like taking a multivitamin. When you take a good multivitamin like our V mineralized product from Species Nutrition, you don't necessarily feel anything long term. Maybe initially you do because you're deficient in some stuff, but once you're taking the right amount of stuff, you just feel good all the time. You don't get sick as much. And I think that's the case with mushroom extracts. People are always expecting to feel something on it. Once you've built up your levels in your bloodstream and they're working, you just always feel good. And then you don't get like a high from them anymore, because you're not noticing going from lethargic to all of a sudden focused. You're just focused all the time, and that becomes normal. And so I think you have to just trust in the process that if you're getting good quality mushroom extracts, and you're taking them on a regular basis, in other words, you're not missing 2 weeks at a time in between, that's not going to help you. You're going to get the better or the good cognitive effects from them. Now, there are people who use the magic mushrooms, they microdose the ones that make you hallucinate and stuff like that. That's a different, you're going to feel those. That's not something you want to take on a regular basis. I don't recommend that whatsoever. But the ones we're talking about here, which help with cognitive function and immune system, enhancement, those are the ones that, like I said, it's like you're taking a multivitamin. Assume that if you take it on a regular basis, consistently, you're getting the benefits from it.
Question about training-related question. Is there any advantage for kneeling behind the low pulley row doing one arm rows? Doesn't look like there's any more stretch than sitting on the seat. I've seen this too, but do you see any advantage, I guess, literally kneeling behind the low pulley while doing a one arm row?
I mean, anytime you change the angles on things and you kind of mix things up and you do one arm at a time versus two arm, you can't hurt. You know what I mean? Though I think it's anything special. No, I think what people do is they get bored doing the same exercises, and they mix up variations of it. I think that's a good thing to do from time to time, especially if you are bored with doing kind of the same stuff, and maybe you're stagnating, maybe you're not noticing any changes in your physique because you're doing the same thing every time. I try to do that, so I'll try to use like machines I never use sometimes. My basics tend to always be my basics, my barbell, rows, and my pull downs. Which is for me my basic 2 exercises. Then I kind of decide what I want to do. I want to do 1-arm dumbbell rows today. Do I want to do 1-arm rows on the hammer machine? Am I going to do seated, cable rows like we were just talking about, or seated, rows? Am I going to do 1 arm at a time versus 2 arms at a time? Am I going to do pullovers today, or am I going to? So I kind of mix it up. So I have the 2 basic core exercises that I do, and then I kind of pick 2 or 3 others that I'll do. Now I don't do deadlifts anymore because of my knee and everything like that. But and back in the day, I used to end every other back workout with heavy deadlifts. Usually off the floor, sometimes off the power rack. And I just don't do those anymore. I usually end every back workout now with hyperextensions, just to make sure I strengthen that lower back and then the glutes and stuff like that. So once again, is there a benefit over one or the other? Probably not. But I think that it's not a bad idea to vary your exercises.
Question about a recovery from a tear. I have a 75% thickness tear of my supraspinatus. I've had 1 PRP injection that didn't seem to do anything, and I've done TB500, BP 157, and GHK-CU for over 4 months. I also did 6 weeks of PT. It doesn't seem to have gotten any better. I would like to have it repaired by surgery, but that's just not feasible for at least another year. Would you recommend GH or anything like IGF-1 to help repair the rotator cuff? Thank you, from a fellow Long Islander.
The problem is when you have a 75% tear in the rotator cuff, it means, if you think about it, first of all, here's the head of your humerus. The rotator cuff muscle is kind of like a strap-like muscles that kind of hold this head of your humerus or upper arm bone in place, right? So if you're missing 75% of that, that means you have like 2 little pieces holding on to this joint, and this joint wants to dislocate itself. So you're getting movement in there because the rotator cuff is not holding it in place. Okay, you could take all the GH, peptides, healing modalities you want. You'll reduce inflammation in there, but you're not putting these muscles back on where they're supposed to be. They're off. They're torn. It's like tearing your bicep. So you have instability in that shoulder joint. The deltoid can stabilize the joint, a little bit. But internally, you're having movement, and that's why you're having pain, you're having rubbing and stuff like that. So the only real way to fix that would be to go in there and reattach and sew those muscles on, so you have a little bit more stability in there. And I think that's what's happening to you. So you try to do exercises that don't require as much stability. So I wouldn't be doing dumbbell presses because you have to stabilize. Try to do machine stuff. Try to do like 1 arm, like I use the side lateral machine where you can put the pad on your arm and you can just lift up, because that stabilizes a lot for you, but you can still work the deltoids. So you can build big deltoids without having to worry about the stability of the rotator cuff, But once you start trying to do free weight stuff, you're going to feel it a lot more. And you know what? You might risk tearing it because whatever's hanging in there, the 25% that's left is being asked to do a lot. Now, you should be doing your rotator cuff exercises, dumbbells like this, cable like that, to strengthen whatever's there. But you're not going to repair what's torn. And I think that's important to understand, that you're not putting those muscles back with taking peptides and GH. All you're doing is reducing inflammation.
Take a couple more questions. I've read that eating a meal actually causes muscle protein synthesis, leucine spike. Would it best be to stimulate that muscle protein synthesis as often as possible? Is there a difference between doing 5 meals versus 6? How about 7? I'm talking regardless of calories. I know at some point it would be necessary to divide into more meals just to get the calories in.
Well, as I always say, there's no storage facility for protein in the body. So your body can't store protein, and when it needs it, it kind of pushes it out like it would be carbs with glycogen storage or fat with fat storage. So the idea is to eat small, frequent meals throughout the day, 5 meals usually for women, 6 meals for men. Now, the question is if you broke up those 6 meals for men into 12 meals, would that be better? Well, probably not, because the meal lasts. In other words, it takes time to digest and absorb those amino acids. So you constantly have a trickle of amino acids into the bloodstream. So you're not going from eating a meal and then an hour later you're at zero. You're still absorbing that meal. So that's why every 2 hours is usually pretty adequate in the off season to grow. Now, if you have a very fast metabolism and you're doing shakes, which get absorbed very rapidly, you might need to go every 90 minutes. Remember, so a meal takes, theoretically at least, it might be faster, but theoretically it's 8 grams of protein per hour you absorb. Whereas a shake, you absorb all the protein immediately because it's pretty much digested already. That's why I always set up my off-season diets with meal, shake, meal, shake, meal, shake. So I was always getting this hyper infusion of a lot of protein every other meal. So once again, how you do it is up to you, but taking in more frequent meals is not necessarily going to do it. The key is don't go long periods without eating. So in other words, I know guys that eat 6 meals a day, but then they have a gap of 5 hours in the middle of the day. For some reason, they don't eat, and then they try to jam in the last 4 meals an hour apart at the end of the day. That's not going to solve the problem that you missed eating for 5 hours during the middle of the day, because yes, then you're at a lack of protein. Now the body's going to say, well, what are we going to do for protein? Well, we'll just pull it out of the skeletal muscle and grab it from there. And that's not what you want. You don't want your body cannibalizing its own muscle tissue because you're not eating frequently enough. So that's the theory behind that. I used to wake up in the middle of the night and take shakes just because I was paranoid that while I was sleeping, I would go catabolic. But I had a really fast metabolism. For most people, if they eat a meal before bed, that usually gets them through the night.
Take one more question. Over the last 2-3 years, the discussion has been had about Derek Lunsford and where does his back rank among the greatest. So the question is it fair to put Derek Lunsford in the top 3 backs of all time alongside Dorian and Ronnie?
The only thing holding Derek back is his height. So for his height, his back is like insane. He's one of the widest guys I've ever seen in person too. For his height, it's really impressive. And his back back double bicep shot is just devastating. So is his lat spread. If he was taller, which he's not, I think he would rank up there, among the best of the best. The problem is when you put Ronnie and Dorian and even Haney next to him, they're so tall and they're so wide, they're wide that it just, the back has just got more mass to it. So I think that's the only thing that hurts him against trying to figure out who the greatest of all time is. I think he's got one of the top 10 backs of all time for sure. I mean, if you remember Joel Stubbs, he had no legs because he had torn both his quads. He had probably the best back of all time. I mean, his back might be better than Ronnie Coleman's back. It was just huge. So there are some guys that had some insane back development over the years. They just didn't have the whole physique to go with it. As far as guys that are maybe Mr. Olympias, his back is probably up there with the top 3 Mr. Olympias of all time. And that's a testament to, how hard he works and great genetics.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Right now on the channel, all new episode of the Palumbo podcast, as well as Tuesday's episode of After Hours and Monday. I'm all over. My timeline is all over the place.
You don't know where you are.
On Monday, After Hours Tuesday, and then Wednesday, all new episode of the Palumbo podcast, or a very real conversation about deaths and bodybuilding. And I guess one of the topics of conversation was about where people are getting their information from and just how many sources and not many qualified sources are all across the different crevices of the internet and social media. And, just be careful as far as who you take your information, your guidance from, and just knowing how to approach the sport in a safer manner. So a great episode. Go check it out on the channel. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, any of our segments. All new website, all new RXMuscle.com website is in development. We're almost there. And I promise you it's going to be worth the wait. It's going to be a new centralized source for everything bodybuilding news, content. everything that it is that we discuss on this show, anabolic talk, debates, everything is going to be in all one centralized location. We're very excited about this. It's something we're working very hard on, and we can't wait to have it rolled out in the next few days. We'll keep it locked. If you're not, again, Instagram, official_RX Muscle will have all the updates there as far as when we expect the site to go live, but we do expect it to go live in the coming days. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.